Hello everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday here and I am excited to have Jordan back today. So I'm going to get him right on. We've got some amazing topics that we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about retinols and AHAs. We're going to be talking about feeding the skin a lot of nutrients and what those nutrients are that are so amazing for the skin. We're also going to be talking about stress and diet and how that affects the skin. So let me get Jordan on here, and hello all, nice to see you. There we go, there he is. I wonder what color shirt he's wearing today. So excited to see. Hi, hello.
Hello.
Did you hear what I just said?
Yes, I did.
Went, look at you. Oh, I love it. I love it. Hi.
Hi. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. I know. I'm excited, Jordan. We've got some really good stuff to talk about today.
Me too.
Feeding the skin, tons of nutrients. I wanted to talk to you, and I think we'll dive into something that is, a sort of a continuation on things that we've talked about in the past. But you sort of understand too, we're constantly seeing people that are just still overkill with the retinols. And what that means, and I say overkill because it's, they still think stronger is better. Mm-hmm. And your AHAs, these kinds of things, without having sort of balance in the skin before doing that. So can you sort of, share with us your thoughts and just what you're seeing and with overkill with these two things?
Yeah, it's so important because they couldn't be two more important ingredients in a skincare regimen, right? Like alpha hydroxy acids and vitamin A. Yes, you want those in your routine.
Yeah.
But the mistake I'm seeing, and the mistake that I was seeing now for probably close to 5 years, is when people would come in, the thing I was fixing was the broken down inflammation, irritation from, once we got to the bottom of it, overuse of acids, overuse of retinols. And so then having to, as you and I have talked about constantly before, remove them, take them off of their acids and retinols, get them on a good routine. But yeah, I don't know, I try to think and go over, is this from an industry? Like, is the industry putting it on people? Because obviously, the acids and the retinol started to come out big in the 90s. And then there was more at-home versions, and then the at-home versions got stronger. And then they started popping up in cleansers and in serums and in toners and in moisturizers. And so then people are combining all of those things. And I think while meaning well, they don't understand the true impact of overburdening the skin and breaking the barrier down and not having a great skin. And then getting in a bad cycle too, where they don't give their skin enough rest or they don't feed their skin, which obviously we'll talk about later, to then be able to accept retinols and acids. And so they sort of just get in this constant cycle where they never give their skin enough of a break or enough of a feeding.
Yes.
So then they go back on the acids and retinols, go back to the same problem, then they go off but not long enough. And so they haven't been able to really find the sweet spot for their skin with these amazing ingredients.
It's such a cycle, and I see it so much too. And I sort of, it's like I'm constantly talking about you have to have balance with your skin before. Your skin's got to be in a healthy state. It's got to be in a healthy state before you even go there. And I feel like, what a lot of people are doing is they're just rushing into these, actives, right? Mm-hmm. Feeling that is something that's going to just make everything better. But it doesn't work like that. It's like if you set up a sensitive, a dry, ruddy, irritated slate, then nothing works. So it's the importance, again, we constantly talk about just the consistency of good home care and just the balance. You've got to get your skin to a place to be able to move to that next level. And that's what I feel like a lot of people, they're missing that, they're missing, they're still just, looking for the strongest items, whether it be on bloody Amazon or, wherever they're
Yeah.
getting them. I mean, it's like, for good, it's just keep your actives low, work slow with things. There's nothing wrong with using it 2 or 3 times a week. And just the difference too between using actives in, a cleanser, which I know you're not a huge fan of either, like me. It's like, we do not want to set up that sensitive slate. Keep your actives for later on in your daily routine. But the types of actives that are in serums and creams, like, how do you feel? Like what is your ideal active, like your regimen, an ideal active regimen? Someone's skin is kind of, they're sensitive. They're starting to see wrinkles. They're wanting to move to that next level. Like, what is your recommend? Like, what would you prescribe?
2 things, because one thing I want to say before I get into that you said that is really important is that thing of, even if you're only using it twice a week, whatever that is for you, is so important, because I think people think also too that they finally strengthen their skin, and so they go jump in. Maybe it's not a high percentage, but maybe they start using something every day, and know that you then have to work up to the next step even when you're on acids and retinols. Yes. Right? So like, start slow and steady and gentle, and then maybe you add a day, or maybe you go a teeny bit of a percentage up or a teeny bit of a strength up. So yes. I think that's a really important thing that you had mentioned that is really crucial for everyone out there. But for me, if it was a sensitive client coming in, if their skin was already in a good place in terms of it was a little sensitive, but it had been strengthened, it was a little more resilient, I would probably start them on a lactic, a really, really gentle leave-on lactic, and maybe in a cream, right? So that it's gonna be buffered enough. They're gonna get that and see how their skin does with that. So as a routine, obviously very gentle cleansing, a really great physical block SPF in the AM, maybe a great like antioxidant in the AM, or even a flavonoid or a peptide, and then in the evening move them into lactic acid. That way I feel like they're getting a little bit of everything, but nothing that's going to completely exacerbate any sensitivities, redness, heat in the skin, and start them slow, maybe twice a week on that lactic acid cream, just to see how things go. And then again, build from there. If their skin takes it over the course of a month, going twice a week, then we add in a 3rd time, and so on and so forth. But that would be sort of initial. I know I was grabbing at a few things instead of naming specific products, but again, having a mix of feeding the skin, but then starting to introduce acids into the skin so that client starts seeing, a bounce in their skin, a thickness in their skin that they want to see. Well, in the dermal layers, not in the outer layers, the derm. Clarify. But that's sort of where I would start with that client.
See, I think it's something that's really important that people understand. It is really about it's being gentle with your skin enough to be able to and getting that balance where it's not surface dry, it's not irritated in any way, because as soon as you get irritation and you've used a product that's too active, they've just got to stop it. I mean, completely, and get their skin back to that balanced state. But it is so important with acids and AHAs to work slowly, to work their way up. And, and I think, like you said, it's great when they're buffered, especially for home care. I mean, leave the stronger versions to the SD or the dermatologist, what they're doing, but just keep, the consistency of doing AHAs every single day and working with retinols is really, it's a great place to be. I mean, I love that I can use it every single day.
Right.
And, and I have to say, from 10 years ago, just how much better the quality of my skin is, because I can use it every single day and I don't ever get to that irritated place. And I say ever because occasionally I'll have an issue on my neck where I've got to cut back, because the neck skin is very different from the face skin. And it is a thinner skin like the eye area. I mean, I'm not, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm not a huge fan of using retinols around the eye on a thinner, in a thinner area either.
I'm not either at all.
Yeah. I think it's pushed out there a little bit, and people don't realize, I mean, your skin around your eyes, you know, is a lot thinner. And you know, the one thing that retinol does, and you mentioned, you know, it really strengthens those dermal layers, is you know, sun UVA, it damages the dermal layers, it damages the collagen, elastin fibers, as we know. And by working with, you know, your alpha hydroxy acids on a regular basis, and your retinols, you're really strengthening those dermal layers. So what your alpha hydroxy acids and your retinol does is it does thin that outer, you know, layer a little bit, in lessening the depth of a wrinkle, right? But and making it a little bit more photosensitive. That is all true. But what it does to your dermal levels, it's like your collagen like this, it tightens it, it makes it strong. And that is fantastic, because that's how you keep your skin younger longer, right? So it's something that I just think it's so great. And I know you're seeing a lot of it as well, is just like, you know, we want to get out to you guys out there the importance of just not going too strong too quickly, you know, really taking your time.
Another really important thing that you, as you always do, brought up, but I think is important to reiterate, is even you, somebody who has the experience and the practice and the skin in a really strong place, that even sometimes you have to cut back on your neck. Yes, the neck is different than the face, but communicating that to the client as well, it could happen on the face. So even if you think you're in a really great place, still check in with the skin, because if you ignore, you know, an irritation or an inflammation and you aren't cutting back, that's when you're going to start into this cycle again. So yeah, a very important thing for people to pay attention and listen to their own skin.
You know, and I think I was listening to Caroline Herons the other night, and I heard her saying too about retinols, and it's something that I've never pointed out. I've seen it and I've never pointed out, and I want to say this now because she said it and I'm like, oh my God, I should be telling people. But there are sensitive areas of the face. You know, like when people are using retinols, is you do have to be careful around the eyes, you do have to be careful around the sides of the nose and around the mouth. You know, it's like you can, this area of the face can take it a lot more than here. So when people say, well, I'm, you know, getting dry and flaky around here, I'm getting dry and flaky around the nose, don't use it there. And when she said that, I just thought, oh my God, I should be telling her, you know, the same. It's something that's so important. And I mean, still, you know, what are the things that really change the skin? I mean, retinols and AHAs, they just change the skin.
Exactly.
They really change the skin. And I know people are looking for stronger. They even say they go overseas to get stronger retinols to be able to purchase things. And I just don't know. It's like that, what I said with cleansing, right? Do I have to stand on my head, Jordan? How is it that we can tell people, please do not go too strong with your retinols, and please do not go too strong with your AHAs? And I know I've told this story before, but I'm going to share a little bit of something now. You know, is just that my sister, who has never, I mean, had alcohol once every 10 years when she went to a wedding. I mean, she has cirrhosis of the liver because she had too much vitamin A in her diet. And, you know, vitamin A is toxic in large forms. It is absorbed into the bloodstream. When applied to the skin, it is absorbed into the bloodstream. And too much vitamin A, you know, my sister was taking a lot of vitamin A, given it by a nutritionist, because she had a lot of allergies. And she has cirrhosis of the liver. And of course, that is not something that you can repair. Right. You know, it just grows bigger to compensate. But, you know, you guys, you have to understand that vitamin A, it's amazing in how it works on the skin. It helps with little basal cells, you know, anything sort of coming up, brown spots, pore size, scarring, you know, lessening the depth of a wrinkle. It does all of that, but it's toxic. Why would you go use a prescription strength? Why are you out there looking for the highest percentage you can, getting them from other places and using it? I don't understand. I mean, you know, we're living longer now. Got to take care of those organs, right?
Yes, yeah, very much so.
So,
and
yeah.
It is just that thing, because people will even say to me, no, my skin can take it, which I'm thinking to myself, okay, fine, if that's the case right now, but then why even chance it? Because again, I've seen it proven almost, I think, I was going to say 9 times out of 10, I think it's 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
That and because it might not happen overnight for certain people, but it might happen a year down the road. It might happen 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I also feel like this is just an add-on to everything we're talking about. People also don't, I believe, have their SPF dialed in as well to even
Yes.
allow for the best result from an acid or retinol. So I want them to go gentle anyway because they should be, but also because they need to get their SPF in check as well. I think it's a big.
I mean, I think it's a very, very important thing. And I think it's important, like you said, it's, you know, and when I had my live with Dr. Meckelberg the other day, and he talked about the importance of sunblocks and sunscreens. And, you know, that, yes, you know, what people don't realize is that when you are indoors, if you are choosing to use retinols and AHAs, which, by the way, does make the skin younger, it does improve the skin. And I would hate to think I couldn't have them in my life, okay? Right. But when I'm indoors and I have lighting everywhere and you're in front of a computer screen, as he mentioned, it does affect your skin, you know, whether, so it's really important to be using a sunscreen really all the time, indoors, outdoors, you know, especially when you're living, I mean, Los Angeles is crazy. The sun, the amount of sun we have.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's just so important, sunscreen and you know, of course, you know, the zinc, titanium, the physical blocks.
Yeah.
The mineral makeup, you know, just all of these things are so important.
And, you know, I think this will probably lead us into the next thing, but feeding the skin and what people, I think, anymore consider, it's a fine line because we talk about how excited we are by acids and retinols and what they can do for the skin, but that doesn't diminish any of the other great ingredients that are out there that you need to create a really strong routine and a really strong slate. Obviously, one is SPF as well. But I think that is something that we should get into too, because
right. Oh, absolutely. And let's dive into that because, you know, I mean, always, I mean, before applying your strongest, you have to, it's the layering, isn't it? The serums, the antioxidants, the peptides and humectants. And so Jordan, tell us some of your favorites, like, you know, what are some of your favorites in that's out there? And
so I love, so yeah, first things first, retinols, acids, like I said, great, but then these other ingredients are imperative for just basic skin health, but also for being able to really use and love your acids and retinols as well.
Yes.
So for me, humectants, I love glycerin, I love sodium hyaluronate, hyaluronic acid.
Yes.
I love aloe. I love peptides. I mean, peptides are amazing. Also, the sort of plethora of things they can do, whether it's help reduce redness, help stimulate fibroblast cells, you know, creating, again, that thicker, healthier dermal layer. They can bind water to the skin. I mean, peptides really are amazing. Flavonoids, antioxidants, all the ones that are always, you know, prevalent that we hear about. Green tea, amazing, internally, externally. Pomegranate, grapeseed, all the things that we know and talk about and hear about that people think of as buzzwords or maybe trendy. They're not. They're sort of time honored and have a ton of research behind them, a ton of results behind them, and are great ingredients to just help the skin and strengthen the skin. And then, of course, SPF, zinc-based SPFs, creating a really great, healthy skin, even just with that routine, and then adding in all the other good stuff. But those are my favorites. What are your favorites?
Yeah, no, I like you. I mean, I'm a huge one, and I'm constantly talking about layering. You know, when people come in to see me, you know, I've said this so many times, but, you know, as we get older, our skin gets thinner. And, you know, the environment, whether it be air conditioning, lighting, you know, wind, and these extremities that we have, and sun, I mean, you have to lay, you've got to protect your skin. So, you know, when I have my clients on the table, I'm going to grab their finger and say, this is stick. Okay. You can feel I've got stuff on my face. You know, I want to feel you've got something on your face all day long. I want to feel like you've got that protective layer. So with some of the layering is so important. And you know, I like you, you know, I like hyaluronic acid a lot. And the reason why I like hyaluronic acid is because I can use it on everybody. It doesn't matter, you know, whether you're dry or whether you're oily, acnetic. I like, you know, hyaluronic acid because, you know, yes, it's, you know, it's a moisture binder. And I think that you know, it's one of the best moisture binders out there. So when you want to maintain, nutrition and hydration in the skin, you need something like that. And we, you know, what I see so much in my practice is that people, they have so much dehydration in their skin. Their skin, not only, you know, are they not using all the things that they should be using, you know, sunblocks and layering, their skin is just lacking hydration. And without hydration, nothing looks good. You know, I mean, if you hydrate an oily skin, you know what, that oily skin is going to just look so much better. And I'm not talking about over-nourishing. I'm just talking about hydrating it.
Right.
I mean, hydrate those blackheads, for God's sake. Make it easier when we go to remove them. Don't let them, you know, sit there and be that one of those sebaceous hyperplasia, you know, things that we have so you know, so much difficulty. Well, we can't remove them. We've got to send them off to our derms. But, you know, it's just... the antioxidants in general, you know, I mean, vitamin C, I think, is fantastic, but I will say it all depends on the brand, you know, it depends on the philosophy, the brand, the carrier. There's no point having, you know, people, again, another thing that happens is people look for really high percentages of vitamin C. And I have to say, of all serums and of all the vitamins, vitamin C is the one that people have to be careful of. And you know, I'm seeing more and more inflammation in people's body. I'm taking them off citrus, you know, eating citrus, but sometimes I'm taking them off their vitamin C. And sometimes people, they end up, you know, reactive to vitamin C. They get those tiny little red bumps. They get that irritation. You're one of them. I mean, I myself have to be careful sometimes. But people look for the high percentages again, like they do with the high percentages of anything. Give me higher, thinking it's better. But in actual fact, it reverses everything, you know. So, you know, I do like vitamin C, but I like it when it's within a product that delivers the vitamin C, less irritation on top, better, more penetration, you know. A lot of things, the lipoceutical vehicle, the carriers of ingredients is really important. If you don't have a good carrier within your product line, you know, it's not, it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to get to where it needs to go. So, you know, arnica, I love arnica. I love anything that supports blood vessel walls. You hear me talk about this, just because I'm a big believer in anything that helps ruddiness, redness, calming, soothing. Aloe, I love aloe. I love cucumber. I love mulberry extract. You know, I love peptides like you, Jordan. I think peptides are what I call the bodybuilders in the skin. I think they're really, really important. And the different types of there's so many different types of peptides. And I think that, you know, sometimes they're better for people. You know, I find, to be honest with you, and I mean, you know, it's like dealing with an Asian skin, for instance, a very, very sensitive skin that I feel is the one skin of all the years I've been doing this, and coming from a country where, you know, where we have a huge percentage population, you know, we have Italians, Greeks, you know, a lot of Asians in Australia. It's like Asian skin is so sensitive, and yet I've got to change things around with them all the time. And it's sensitive in that it's sensitive to keep it, you know, number one, without affecting the pigment cells. Number two, just keeping the barrier strong and keeping it strong. And so I'm a huge believer in peptides, you know, especially with Asian skin. You know, there's certain things I like for certain skin, you know, because it just works better. So, you know, so there's some of my my favorites. Yeah.
Okay, I'm totally bouncing back on something you said earlier, but again, important. And it was about retinol around the eye area and how we're not a fan of it. But for the same reason where you can get sensitive from retinol and it's creating irritation, you know, that redness is a sign of irritation and inflammation, and you want to calm that down. And so if you're doing that around the eye area where it's very thin and very susceptible to sensitivities, having irritation and inflammation around that is one of the worst things you can do anywhere, of course, but especially the eye area where it just can't take it. So, and then back to a peptide eye product, lovely, right? Great building blocks, like you said. But no, I love those ingredients. And I just think it's so important for people to know that those ingredients are not boring. They're not basic. That's what's really going to create the strong building blocks of good, healthy skin to then go into your acids, to then go into your retinols. And also something too that still kills me is, you know, hyaluronic acid is getting a bit of a not a pushback and not
Yeah,
a bad
it's a little,
rap,
yeah, I've heard that too.
but because of course but it would be like any humectant, right?
Mm.
So if you're in a dry environment, you put it on your skin, it pulls,
Yeah, moisture. Yeah,
from,
or
or
from,
it doesn't
yeah,
pull
inside
it
it.
from
Yeah.
the air, it pulls it from your own skin. However, that's obviously why you should be sealing it in with a cream, and it can, take the moisture from the cream. But also that's why you don't need to look for a 2%. Again, it's another race to the high percentage of hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is super effective in the
Yeah.
teeny minuscule amounts. And so these brands now are coming out with 2% hyaluronic acid. That is where I think people are seeing the problem.
Yeah.
And so again, it's another ingredient. Who thought hyaluronic acid could go past the tipping point of going extreme?
But you know what, Jordan, a really good point. I mean, I hope, you guys, it's absolutely right what you're saying. It's like, that it's whenever they start to be like pulling in and trying to change things up and get higher percentages, because they're putting, they're putting it out there that higher is better. And it is actually the complete opposite.
Right.
What is better is the consistency of every single day and just slowly doing that, because you're living longer now. Once you're using the highest of everything, then what are you going to do, for God's sake? Apart from have a skin that doesn't even look normal. I mean, let's talk about, skins that are over processed. I mean, they look waxy, and they don't look healthy.
Oh, yeah.
So unhealthy. But you're absolutely right. The hyaluronic acid there, people are wanting stronger percentages, thinking better, when yes, hyaluronic acid, it is a humectant. It does draw moisture wherever moisture is. And if you are living in a drier climate, like you said, it's not going to have it in the air to draw it to itself. It's going to come from the inside. So the layering, putting on your serums and these things are so important. But again, guys, it's just don't go for those strong percentages. I mean, get it out of your head. Just the consistency, lower doses, just good home care, good home basic, care is what is needed. And I'm going to be ranting and raving about this for a long time, because it's a huge subject right now. But Jordan, I'm excited. I'm excited because I know you've got an eye product coming out, and I'm really excited.
Tomorrow.
I'm really excited to get this, because the eye area, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, it affects everybody. This is something that is we have wrinkles around our eyes because it's our expression area. It is also a very thin skin. A lot of people are afraid to put anything around the eye area. Yeah. And the eye area is an area that needs protection. You have to layer there as well. People say this, they're worried it's going to seep into the eye, and especially people wearing contact lenses and things today, they're very nervous about putting product around the eye area. But it is so important to protect it. And again, understand, if you're using a retinol around your eye area, it thins the skin. For a lot of people that are doing this in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're not going to know until you get older what's going to happen. And then you're going to see a lot more bluey. You're going to see those blue veins, which, is going to be, it's hard to cover that. That's what gives that shadow. It's what makes you look tired. It makes you look like you've got major food allergies, all of these things, right? But the eye area, it's so important when you're putting on your eye product. Put in a complete circle. Don't forget about the eyelid. And you want to be able to use something that isn't going to irritate. So, retinols, again, are really risky for me in eye products. There are the exceptions where they've done it in very low doses. And I've even
Right.
sort of helped develop a line where they did that for Guthi Renko. But it was something that, you've just got to be so careful. But again, an area where you really have to low to nothing with retinols in that area. But I'm super excited to be getting yours soon.
It's interesting. And I think people have probably experienced this, so worth bringing up. But even sometimes if I've taken my retinol a little too high, again, sort of we talked about, like, avoid those certain areas. But even if I wasn't putting it around the eye area, but I just went up a little too high, I start to get this almost like straight line of irritation, inflammation right where it would.
Yeah.
And sure I'm not alone in that. And so it's sort of a very obvious reaction that people can sort of tell at home how sensitive the eye area really,
Yeah, very, very
really
sensitive, especially, you know, up here. Yeah.
yeah.
It's even when using, you know, exfoliants and things that
Yeah.
have your glycolic in it or something. And I know even sometimes on people, this is an area that, you know, when you're working it into the skin, to be really careful up by the eye area. It's you want to be able to put things there, but certainly you know, more soothing, calming, protecting, these types of things are really important. So Jordan, you know, stress and diet plays a huge part on the skin, and you know, I love that I get to be able to talk about face mapping and just the importance of diet with you know, how it affects certain foods, how it affects the skin. You know, how do you feel with you know, with everything, especially now, because, you know, skin is affected by stress, and we're certainly seeing a lot more of that right now. And just sort of what are you seeing, and how are you feeling about what's happening, and what people should be doing?
So the stress part of it has been, you know, I'm pretty dialed in now with foods for me personally, and what I sort of can and cannot have. And if I do have them, I enjoy them when I'm having them. I know that like I might need to sort of compensate with a little TLC afterwards, and try not to overindulge. But for me, the biggest surprise has been, because I feel like this is probably the longest stretch of chronic stress, where, I mean, if you have the TV on and you're listening to the news, you can put yourself in a good mood, but I just feel like there's these constant little negative things which aren't great to hear, and I feel like are wearing on me or wearing on a lot of people. And the amount of heat stemming just from that alone, you know, and coming up, and I can feel it in my cheeks. So right out of the gate, the first few weeks when things really were very uncertain, very unclear, my skin went south very quickly. It was not great. And since then, I've like watched my diet, watched my exercise, maintained everything, and I've gotten it back. But the stress part of it, I've always known to be a big issue for me personally again. I'm somebody that will break out. Like, I usually don't break out from a product. I'll break out from stress. Yes. Or I'll break out from food. Like, that's, my skin will tolerate the product. It might not love it. It might get overnourished or something. But I usually have a more adverse reaction to stress and from diet. But that's usually a very fleeting moment, right? It might be a stressful week, a stressful day, not a stressful 4 or 5 weeks or whatever we're going on now of a constant. And then too, I mean, to bring this into it, I'm used to moving. I go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week and move and walk and jog. It's nothing extreme, but it's just that movement. Yes. And my husband's still a dancer and a personal trainer, so he's been doing at-home workouts 3 days a week, which has helped. I've started doing those, but it still doesn't equal what I was able to do. So seeing that sort of stagnation in the body and paired with the stress and feeling the heat in the skin, it has not been a lovely combination. And I know I'm not alone, because I'm seeing so many people question things. You know, they might have been on a really great at-home care regimen now for a year, 2 years, and they think it's their products. And I'm trying to beg them to not, they don't need to go looking for something else. Like, stay the course with a routine that's been working for you, but look at the other triggers. Because how have you been? I mean, I know you're somebody who's very dialed in with everything, but I would love to know. Well,
I find that, you know, people, you know, yes, you know, stress definitely affects the skin, but it doesn't, it's not, I want people to understand something. I want people to understand that stress is not just a word, okay? And I'm going to say it again, it's not just a word. What it does is it attacks our weakened organs. So, you know, we come into this world with areas that are weaker in our body from our parents and our grandparents. And for some people, when they get stressed, they get the painful nodule, the hormonal acne. And so we know that stress, you know what, stress is affecting your hormones. So then I'll send them off to an endocrinologist or somebody to help see where their hormone levels are. For some people, you know, stress, it attacks, you know, it flares up. Their skin will flare up. They'll get more dermatitis or more eczema, which was my case when I used to get it on my hands in one particular marriage that I'm no longer in. But, you know, it's just, it affects you. You know what I mean? It's in you know, the skin being the largest organ of elimination is just a reflection of what's going on the inside.
Yep.
So, you know, you're, first of all, it's stress. Then it's okay. It attacks your weakened organs, your hormones in this case. And then what happens as a result of that? You get painful nodules coming up more often, anywhere on the face. So, you know, what I think is really important that people identify that, you know, stress actually attacks your inner self, your gut, your stomach. I mean, for a lot of people, it attacks their gut. And, you know, they can't eat, and they feel you know, they get sick, and they, you know, they can't digest their food, and, you know, all these things. You know, I think it's important to recognize first what part of your body is affected with stress, with what's going on now. Like, where are you feeling not good? You know, if it's your stomach, then, you know, go back to some simplicity with your foods. Don't be trying to shovel a lot of things in. Just try to look at what it is you're going to eat that's going to be clean. And so that you're going to, you know, make it easier. And I will say something, and it's a little bit strange probably, but, you know, in studying iridology, you know, in studying, which iridology is studying the iris, Jordan, and it's the colored part of the eye. The iris is like a clock in iridology. So, you know, every minute of that clock is a different organ, and whether it be out around the scurf rim, the outer part of the iris, or whether it's around the pupil, you know, again, it's a different part of the body. And what you learn in studying iridology is that, you know, things are going on a long time before we start getting symptoms of it. You know, they say 80%, you know, we're 80% into some things, you know, going on before we even start to get signs of it. So, you know, what's fantastic about iridology is you can see things long before you get symptoms. You can see if you have issues with your gut or your lungs or your head or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, even surgeries you have, it shows up in your eye. You know, it's just an extraordinary thing to understand. So I think that, you know, it's important for people to understand and recognize that stress attacks your body. And those areas that you feel are not your strong areas, you know, you have to be a little bit intuitive here. And you have to think about areas that are maybe, you know, like when I'm feeling stressed right now, like what is Nerida doing? Nerida is being really conscious of what she's eating, because I know that there are certain foods that just, you know, that don't work for me. And by the way, they're not the foods, the junk foods. They're the foods that, you know, certain fruits that I shouldn't be eating that just mess with my stomach. I think at this time, you know, it's, you know, years ago, my grandmother, she was still alive, probably be 150 now, I don't know. You know, she could eat raw vegetables, okay, because that her iris was like this. It was tight, like a network. It's like, you know, what happens to collagen, right? The iris network is tight. The constitution, we call it a constitution. Nowadays, people's constitutions are like this. You see a lot of lesions, a lot of holes in the network. It's not tight anymore. So what does that mean when it comes to food? It means, you know what? We can't eat raw food the same way you could 100 years ago. You need to maybe cook your food a little bit. You know, it's we as beings, human beings, evolve with our environment. And it's like, you know, years ago, there wasn't the pollution, there wasn't the pesticides and the madness of the world out there putting things into our water or doing whatever, you know, our vaccines, or I won't even go, you know, down that route. But let's just say there's, you know, there wasn't the, things weren't as evolved, okay? And your bodies could handle things differently. But nowadays, you know, it's like you have to be kind to yourself. You have to take a step back, and you have to, don't beat yourself up. You've got to embrace who you are and love that, you know. And I think that it's really important that people understand that what's right for this one over here, some fitness guy who looks insane because he's got muscles bulging, you know, like it's not right for that one over there. Right. And that we are all different. And I want people to recognize and understand that we are all different. And you know what? That difference is fantastic.
Hmm.
So it's to embrace that, but you've got to sort of, no one can tell you like you can tell you. You have to be a little intuitive, and you've got to sit back and just think about the foods that you eat, the exercise that you do, you know, in your case, because for a lot of people, exercise is really important. For it sets their head up for their day.
Yeah.
You know, in how they work, and so I think it's really important to think about it and to recognize what makes you feel good. What makes you feel strong? What makes you feel confident? You know, these things are really important, because it's not what anybody else can tell you. Only you can tell you this.
Yeah.
Only you know what's right for you. So I think in times like this, for me, I don't get to sleep in a bunch because I'm doing a lot of things, especially at night. I'm a night person, so I'm up answering questions at all hours. You know, I'm really just, I'm not beating myself up. Fortunately, I have this device in my home, an exercise device that I can
Good.
jump on and still, you know, do work while I'm on it. But you know, I know movement is very important to me in just, you know, for my circulation, and just being kind to myself, and not being too adventurous with foods.
Hmm.
I'm just kind of keeping it pretty simple right now. So if you would have seen me last night, let me tell you what I did. I have a friend, a hairdresser, Adia, okay, and he's been doing all these videos, and he was doing a video this, you know, showing people how to give yourself a trim, a hair trim.
Oh, no.
And how to get a nice little thing. So last night I'm like, you know, experimenting, doing all this stuff, and I thought, oh, it's just going to, you know, make myself feel better. I'm going to do a little something with my hair. I'm going to do some things. So, you know, these kind of things are fun, but just things that that make you feel good, that mean something to you.
The be gentle with yourself. I just did a podcast, and that was a big like feel good thing that I talked about, was being gentle with yourself. I think we just are sort of programmed anymore to be really strict and really tough on ourselves, and it's one of the worst things, obviously, in terms of stress. And then in terms of a skincare routine too, if you do something, you know, people beat themselves up if they like go to bed with their makeup on, which, no, it's not great, but then just pick back up. Like, it's not the end of the world. It's the bigger picture. It's not that one night, and just keep on with it. So that is something that being gentle with yourself to me is like one of the number one best self-care habits and skincare habits, especially now when we're indoors, and we're stressed and we're anxious and it's coming out in our skin. And you know, the simple food thing. So I've actually been a big fan of just simple foods in general, because it's also like the Italian way, right? Sort of fewer ingredients of the highest quality. You know, whether fresh herbs or a vegetable, and that's usually our diet if we're cooking at home. It's much simpler, and we still are doing that. But for me, the eye-opening thing, not to go like TMI here, but digestion is the red flag for me in terms of the foods that aren't working for me and my constitution. And so telling people obviously to sort of tap in and pay attention, that was my red flag, was, oh. And for me, another big one is pineapple. Pineapple is not great for me, and I found out I have a mild allergy to it. But in terms of heat and redness in the skin, when I eat pineapple, doesn't come out pretty.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know, you know, when I'm working with skin, and I just posted a picture live yesterday, and sorry, not live, it's on my Instagram, it's on my wall, and it's of somebody that, you know, she has a autoimmune disease, but just, you know, sometimes it takes time to figure things out what are right for people. And you know, in this particular post I said that, you know, in her case, I mean talk about, we were trying all kinds of things, and 1 minute it was great, her skin, and not inflamed and not crazy, even though she was on a pretty strict diet, and off in inflammatory foods. But you know, sometimes, you know, when people are struggling with autoimmune disease and different things, there's a lot of balance that you have to find within, you know, with what you're eating, in just in how you take care of yourself. So it's interesting, and sometimes it's a struggle to find what that balance is. But I will tell you that when you find it, it's worth putting the effort in. it's worth looking for what makes you feel good and putting that effort into, you know, to finding that out, whether it be looking into foods that work and support you. Because, you know, people, you know, nowadays what stress does is, because for a lot of people it does affect their gut, their stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people get bloating and have bloating all the time, and you know, and that means allergies, you know, and so you know, it means as you've got a lot of antihistamines kind of flying around in the body. And so, you know, sometimes when the idea of getting back to simplicity with foods, and maybe not having, you know, 10 or 12 different things in your salad, but having, you know, 3 or 4 things, it helps you be able to pinpoint what it is that, or what it could be that doesn't work for you. So the idea of simplicity is that it puts less strain on your body to figure things out. And that's what we want in times like this, COVID-19, a lot of stress. What do we, you know, it's, you know, simplicity, getting back to simplicity with diet it puts less stress, because each food has its own enzyme chain. The older we get, that hydrochloric acid is not, you know, it's harder to break down as you get older foods. You know, it affects you like that. And the same with skin. You know, it's like I'm saying to people, you know, keep it simple right now. Don't go doing crazy things, you know, which forces you maybe to have to go to a dermatologist or a facialist to fix it up, right? Don't go there. I mean, some other people are saying the opposite. This is the time to, you know, explore and do anything and everything. But I'm saying, don't do that. You know, learn how to meditate. Look at Jay Shetty, you know, learn meditation, do things, read, you know, do things that are just very personal to you, that make you feel good. And I think that it's something that, that there's nothing more beneficial in investing in you, in investing back in you. And that is investing in you. Is, you know, learn, look up, you know, I mean, as I talked about Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, these types of things, I would listen to and play them. And I mean, talk about just make you feel extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And then there was the Eckhart Tolle, who I couldn't stand listening to his voice, but I love his books. You know what I mean? Things are going to sound good to you. Somebody's voice has to sound good to you. So I think that, you know, times like this, it's more get back to basics. You know, start cooking. Do things that just make you feel good and make you feel whole. I think is, you know, is what I tell people.
So this is a bit of a stretch, so everybody please stay with. But I was listening to a perfumer today talk about, and to me this is such a very clear thing that I think most of us understand. When you wear perfume or essential oils or whatever, it's going to smell different on every single individual because of the body chemistry. We all know that. I've heard people talk about that. But people still haven't clicked that exact same type of notion to skincare, and what works for some might not work for somebody else, for diet, and for, again, listening to doing something that makes you feel good. People sort of gravitate towards, oh, that person said it worked for them, I have to do that. And then they keep doing it just because somebody else said it, but it's not filling up their soul, it's not making their skin bright. You know, it's not doing great things for them internally, whether diet. So, I mean, it was a really basic connection that I heard today, and was thinking, we can get it together and understand this, but everything else, it seems like there's still a bit of a struggle for some people to understand.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, people ask me constantly questions, you know, what can I use? I've got, you know, hormonal acne. I've got these pimples on my cheeks. And, you know, it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, like, you know, it's not something where I can just say blah, 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 blah.
Right, exactly.
I mean, number one, I'm not looking at them. Number two, it's like, you know, the best thing that I say is go back and either watch, you know, my videos, listen to Jordan Samuel, you know, like, I mean, you have to be, you know, you have to be able to recognize and identify, because we can't see them. You know, I'm talking people that sees, right? You know, that you've got to be able to recognize what type of acne it is you have, or what type of problem you have, because it is different. It is different for everybody, you know. So, you know, there's some common sense, and they have to put the work in. I mean, you know, we're giving them all of this information, via videos, you know, lives, you know, all that we do, your podcast. You know, it's like you've got to kind of sit down and think about it, because it isn't the same for everybody. And it's really hard when people, you know, I see something like, you know, someone says, you know, I've got, you know, spots on my cheeks. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, just go to my website, look at what the spots look like, try to identify.
Right.
You know, it's a very, you know, it's not that black and white. But, you know, when I talk about simplicity is, you know, is just the skin can absorb a certain amount. The more you put on, obviously, you know, the less absorption. You know, layering is important. Starting off having that clean slate, you know, doing your layers, your antioxidants, your peptides, putting on your retinols, your AHAs, or not, just a regular moisturizer, sunblocks, like those are a given. Now within them, it's like, you know, you can change them around a little bit. Maybe it's going to be seasonally. You can, you know, one day you feel like you want the peptides. One day you're going to be outdoors and you want that extra added protection. Right. You're back onto your vitamin C's and your antioxidants, you know. So but I think it's important to, you know, one doesn't need 100 products. Let's just say, keep it simple. You know, make sure what you are putting on your skin has a purpose for you and your skin. That's important, right? That's the most important. Don't go using something because it's an anti-aging, and you're 25 years old. That's, you know, you don't need it. And by the way, it's not going to serve your skin best right now.
Purpose and everything. It's the best. That to me that sums up the whole talk, is purpose, right? Purpose. Such a great word. Purpose, what goes on, totally. Purpose, what you're doing. Yeah. Purpose, what you're eating. Yeah. How you're eating. No, I agree. Yeah. Now I want to just look over here and just make sure. I had some questions here. I just want to make sure that we've discussed everything on my list. We're so good. Is there any, we've got probably, Jordan, we've got maybe little 5 minutes or so. I'm just looking to see if there are any questions that anybody's shooting across the screen, or anything that you can think of that you want to address. We've got about 5 more minutes. This is Liz just said, Nerida, can you touch on nightshade foods? I sure can, Liz. Hello. How are you, beautiful woman? Yes, nightshade foods, and Jordan knows very well about nightshades because one of his first facials, we had that discussion. You know, nightshades are your tomatoes, they are your bell peppers, and you know, and for some it is obviously the potatoes and the whatever that purple vegetable is, I can't think of it right now, eggplant. You know, what nightshades foods, why they're so damaging for a lot of people is for people that have inflammation in the body. Is it's really bad. And inflammation, whether it be a form of arthritis, rheumatoid, or osteo, you know, it affects joints. It affects the circulation in the body, and so that's why people that have rosacea and have a lot of sensitivity, the nightshades are spicy, the red wine, sadly, Jordan, you know, a lot the stimulants, you know, it raises all of that. It raises inflammation. It raises, you know, the ruddiness of it all. So the importance of, you know, for people that do have rosacea, that do have eczema, dermatitis, that feel a lot of heat, the importance of staying away from those nightshades are super important, because it stimulates everything. And spicy foods is a bad one too. So for anybody that, you know, even myself, I'm not supposed to, it's not in my constitution to eat potatoes, and I don't eat tomato either, but when particularly if I eat potatoes, I start feeling it in my joints and my fingers. And you know, I do have arthritis in my family. My mother had it very bad, rheumatoid. All my siblings have it. And fortunately, you know, it's only if I've got to be careful with my nightshades too. You know, definitely. The biggest bummer about all of it is that it's true. And that was what pissed me off the most. I mean, I didn't never not believe it, but then when I came home after that facial and I was super strict, not like harsh, but I was just like, I'm not going to do the tomatoes, I'm not going to do the spice, I'm not going to do the red wine, and my skin redness went down. It felt firmer. It felt stronger. It wasn't inflamed and irritated. And for me, tomatoes are still going to be my toughest thing, even more than red wine, tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the thing is that, you know, even for me, like, you know, I won't say the place, but don't want to advertise it, but, you know, they have these fries that I'm just like, oh my gosh. And still I'll have them just because I'm just like, there is no way potatoes will pick my joints. Like, I want to be able to eat potatoes, right? And so I'll eat them. And sure enough, like, and I might do it for a little bit. And sure enough, I start to feel it. I'm like, no, it can't be, you know. But the funny thing is that, you know, like you said, and it's interesting, and I'm actually going to have this particular person on a live, is that every time I go to him, he's an acupuncturist, but every time I go to him, he says to me, Nerida, did you eat potatoes? And I say, yes. And he said, didn't I tell you you're not to eat potatoes? And he can just tell when he starts working on my, you know, body, you know, kinesiology or whatever he's doing at that time. But it is something that, you know, it's things that affect your system. If you're eating the foods that don't support you, it makes life a little bit more difficult. You know, it makes everything a little bit more difficult. And so, of course, yes, it's very difficult, especially tomatoes. I love tomatoes too, but I haven't eaten tomatoes in a really long time. And I know now, you know, when I do have them, and the thing is, when you go off certain foods that don't support you, if you have them again, you are going to feel it.
Oh yeah.
Than you ever did, than if you were consistently having it.
Yep.
So for me, you know, I'm not supposed to eat chocolate. And I love chocolate, or I loved chocolate, but I went for probably 8 or 10 years without having it. And then I thought, you know what? That's it. I'm going to start eating chocolate again, just because it's like, I love it. I want it with my black coffee. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I started eating chocolate again. And then I, you know, a little bit at a time. And every time I'd eat, I'd get a headache. Now, the last time, I tell you, this is the last time I will ever eat chocolate. This is what happened to me. I had the worst vertigo. I had probably 3 pieces of dark chocolate. I had vertigo for 4 days. It was horrible. I've never had it before in my life. And that was, talk about, like, I'm never, ever having it again, because it was so horrible. So the thing is, like, in other words, if you give up your tomatoes, when you go back, you're going to feel it's going to affect you more than normal. And that's the thing, you know.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened to me. So now it's about, because I'm usually really good about it and off of them, if I go back, it's not the first bite, or it's usually like if I have them for some reason 2 times in a week, it's that second time. I mean, I can probably feel it if I tune into it the first time, but it's that second time I feel it. I feel the heat, like, right through this whole.
Such a bummer. Such a bummer. Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, I love you. I love you. You're so, you know, you're so knowledgeable. You're so great. You know, I just really appreciate you and all the knowledge that you have, and being here with us again today and sharing your knowledge and your experience, and all of that is so valuable. To us all, and to me. And I also love to see what color shirt you're going to have when you're like, oh, what color shirt is John going to be wearing? But I really love and I really appreciate you. And I you know, I'd like to do this, I mean, with you sort of on a monthly basis or something. Please. So we can touch base. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nick. I love this. Please, anytime. Count me in.
So great. So goodbye, all. We'll be back again in a couple of days with another live, and being consistently putting great info out there. So thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Nerida.
Bye, Jordan. Thank you, darling. Bye-bye.